It's unbelievable. He is threatening genocide. He's threatening war crimes. This is Hitlerian, right? This is Adolf Hitler. It's no longer just Benjamin Netanyahu that was communicating in this Hitlerian manner. Donald Trump is doing it as well. I mean, he's done it before, too.
News coming into us from NBC. Actually, before that, let me just bring you...
Donald Trump's last belligerent message was Tuesday night, the 7th or 6th extension on blowing up the power plants and civilian infrastructure of Iran. Was open the fucking straight and you know, all glory to Allah. That's what he said on Easter. He was very disrespectful to the entire Muslim world, you know, threatening war crimes over and over again. And you do that when you're in a position of weakness, right? You don't do that if you have the leverage, if you have the upper hand. You only do that when you're belligerent. So now he's actually upped the ante once again. This morning, I woke up to a Trump truth. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Literally says a whole civilization will die tonight and then ends it with God bless the great people of Iran. This is a contradiction baked into the fucking message. Okay? It's unbelievable. He is threatening genocide. He's threatening war crimes. This is Hitlerian, right? This is Adolf Hitler. It's no longer just Benjamin Netanyahu that was communicating in this Hitlerian manner. Donald Trump is doing it as well. I mean, he's done it before too. So, you know, hopefully people understand exactly what's going on. Damn, Loomer tweeting about you again. Yes, the more Trump is in a state of panic, the more his defenders, the Israel firsters, especially like Laura Loomer, will up the ante and demand my denaturalization and deportation. It's irrelevant. It's a distraction from the main point of contention here. The main issue at hand is Donald Trump is fucking this up and in a spectacular manner. Donald Trump is fucking everything up. And he's also threatening to do war crimes. The more Donald Trump fucks up, the more these guys will hyper-focus on people like myself.
A new post that we've had on Truth Social by Donald Trump. You can see there, he says the whole of civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, there are different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail. Maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. So that statement just released on Truth Social by Donald Trump in relation, of course, to that deadline that should expire at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, US, which is 1 a.m. British time, so our time, 1 a.m. Wednesday morning, where Donald Trump has said that if the Strait of Hormuz has not been reopened and there isn't a deal with the Iranians, then he would destroy countless Iranian infrastructure, including power plants, bridges, and desalination plants as well.
Now to breaking news on the war with Iran. There have been more strikes on Iran today, just hours before President Trump's deadline for...
Yeah, Donald Trump said that, and Donald Trump is threatening to blow up the power plants, okay, the civilian power plants. Two things. Number one, this is a violation of the Geneva Convention, okay? Not that it matters. For America, it's a Geneva suggestion, right? It's not real. However, one of the most unbelievable lines of defense that I have seen thus far, one of the most Israeli lines of defense on the clear-cut terrorism that Donald Trump is advocating for here, has come from these, Israel firsters that don't want to address the true problem here and instead are are, talking about a whole bunch of nonsense. And here is one of them. Eric Doherty, another Trump regime booster, says, breaking, Iran is now forming human chains in front of a power plant in Khazarun in a bid to dissuade President Trump's strikes come 8 p.m. They even invited children to attend. This is evil and disgusting. Iran views their people as meat shields. They're literally saying this is a human shield. Someone even had the audacity to claim that that's the real violation of the Geneva Convention. Here is Javier Blas, energy and commodities columnist at Bloomberg. Iran is likely to deploy human shields to its bridges and power plants tonight. The use of civilians as human shields is banned under the Geneva Convention, Article 51. And it's unfucking believable. It's Iranian civilians on their own volition, hoping, perhaps naively, that this will cause America to be restrained and not blow up their bridges that they use, not blow up their power plants that they need. The army has contingencies, okay? When you blow up a power plant, you're not actually destroying a power plant for any sort of real military purpose. It's not dual use. It's bullshit, okay? To which I said, yeah, Iran would be violating the Geneva Convention here. Get a grip, man. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have totally dropped all pretexts where they say, look, when Trump wants to blow up a power plant, there's no more Geneva Conventions. It's simply a Geneva suggestion, okay? Please do not give any fucking credence to this totally insane retort from those who are actively demanding that we do terrorism, okay? These are people who defended Israel's conduct in Gaza, and they said the exact same shit. They were like, Hamas is actually setting up human shields, okay? Hamas is setting up human shields. That's why we had to blow up the entirety of Gaza. It was fucking bullshit then, and it's bullshit now, okay? There's no such thing. We are violating the Geneva Convention here. Okay, we are violating it. That's what we are threatening to do. The threat alone is terrorism. The threat alone should be actionable, for the record. Okay, the notion that these people are going against their will because the Iranian government is like forcing them to do this is also bullshit. Okay, there are dissidents. There are anti-IRGC prominent critics of the government, people who have literally been arrested in the past that are on their own volition going out and saying, we're going to sit outside of these fucking power plants because hopefully America and Israel will be a little bit more restrained. I hope they're not wrong.
Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And there's a blunt new warning from the president this morning. Nancy Cordes is at the White House. Nancy, good morning.
Nate, President Trump posted a truly apocalyptic message this morning designed apparently to force Iran to cut a deal. He said, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. He was asked multiple times yesterday whether bombing civilian infrastructure would be a war crime. He insisted the Iranian people want him to do it.
They want us to keep bombing.
As the clock ticks down to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, President Trump's threats are getting more specific.
Every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock. Every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again.
Trump was asked repeatedly Monday whether such attacks on civilian infrastructure would constitute a war crime. He insisted the Iranian people get it.
They would be willing to suffer that in order to have freedom. The Iranians have, and we've had numerous intercepts. Please keep bombing.
The war was also on his mind at the annual White House Easter egg roll.
I don't think it gets much more hostile than Iran.
Flanked by the Easter Bunny and the First Lady, Trump rejected a 45-day ceasefire proposed by other countries in the region.
The only one that's going to set a ceasefire is me. I haven't set any ceasefire.
Despite his tough talk, Trump said he believes the Iranians are negotiating in good faith, though he claimed the talks have been hampered by the destruction caused by U.S. missiles.
We're communicating like they used to communicate 2,000 years ago with children, bringing a note back and forth. They have no communication.
With gas prices surging and his poll numbers sagging, Trump acknowledged there is pressure on him to wrap up this war.
Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money.
Unfortunately. He said, unfortunately, although I have an unlimited appetite for death and destruction, unfortunately, the American people want this to come to a close. You know? I mean, he's under a lot of pressure. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I'm telling you right now, the reason why he's behaving like a madman is because of the pressure that he's experiencing. Straight up. Okay. I've told you already. The real pressure points are capital. The real pressure points are Israel, and the real pressure points are all of these allies, right? All of the allies that America has that could potentially go back to America and say, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You got to stop, right? He needs to get a Jamie Dimon boss call. He needs to get a boss call from all, like the coalition of the willing, and he hasn't gotten it yet, or he hasn't listened to it yet, and that is what the real forces of restraint look like here. It's unfortunately not the Democratic pressure, right?
President Trump claimed yesterday that he could take out the entire country in one night if he wanted to. The president of Iran posted on X overnight, quote, over 14 million proud Iranians have up to this moment declared their readiness to sacrifice their lives in defense of Iran.
Wow, Iranians not mincing any words either. Nancy, we thank you. CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent Major Garrett joins us now. Listen, Major, the president is talking tough. If anything, he's doubling down. How seriously do you think we should take this ultimatum?
Very. The president was talking himself into it in the briefing room yesterday when he said the Iranians, the civilians in Iran, not the leadership, the civilians in Iran, for whom this war is putatively fought on behalf of, want the United States and Israel to keep bombing them more. That's the president talking himself into this, also saying that they could withstand the hardship that would be inflicted by destruction of most of the infrastructure of that country supporting 90 million people. That is the president in full public view talking himself into this. And there's plenty of reporting here at CBS and among other news outlets that the Israelis and the United States are expanding the array of targets presented to.
Where are the Democrats? Is a question that a lot of people are asking. I myself have asked this question as well. Finally, it's getting to a point of no return here. So some of the Democrats have actually started saying, oh, Mr. President, stop. Now, of course, obviously, even as the minority party here, the Democrats had some power. They could at least threaten the rest of Congress to be on the record defending this unjustifiable war, defending the war crime presidency. Okay? And they chose not to do that because our leadership is absolutely on board with waging war with Iran. And it's even better that it's Trump doing it. They want it to happen. And it's even better that Trump's doing it because now they don't have to be weighed down. They don't have to be weighed down with the negative association of being responsible for this unpopular and unjustifiable war, right? I mean, this is basically what it is. Trump, I'm going to commit a genocide. Democrats, did you get congressional approval first? The Democrats have done less than I have. At least I've been talking about Donald Trump and constantly demanding Democrats to do something about it, invoke the 25th Amendment, invoke the War Powers Resolution. There are some Democrats who have actually tried to make this happen, but the National Party has been restrained. Okay, a competent counterbalance here, a competent opposition party here would push for the War Powers Resolution instantaneously. The moment that we started amassing troops in the region before the first strike took place, we should have been agitating. Okay, the Democrats should have gotten together and created a plan of attack. They should have immediately demanded the War Powers Resolution. Okay. Not just saying like, oh, inform the public why you're doing this, Mr. President, but actually demand congressional representatives and senators get on the record with their support for this war. Okay. They should have done that instantaneously. And they should have kept pushing for it and agitating for it over and over again in every single mainstream outlet. Okay. It's actually unbelievable that There were more prominent Democrats in this last 2-week buildup to Donald Trump threatening to do maximum terrorism on Iran. Okay. There were more prominent Democrats talking about me than they were about Donald Trump on TV hits, giving interviews to Jewish Insider and whatnot. It was so crazy, right? And you have party dick riders who are running around. You have party dick riders, DNC-backed candidates, or DNC-backed influencers who have been chirping at me rather than hoping that their electeds that are supposed to listen to them do the right thing here, okay? Launch a legislative battle. That's a point of pressure. That's a necessary point of pressure that galvanizes the public into feeling like their voices are being heard, okay? It's a spectacular failure, and it's basically everything that's wrong with the party right now. And that's precisely the reason why, while people are still out there doing protest votes, understandably, in special elections, the overall confidence that the Democrats themselves have in the party is horrible. The numbers are terrible. Akbar Shahid Ahmed also brings up a really devastating point here. White House denies it is considering using nuclear weapons in Iran. Okay? Trump aides have discussed this as a possible step in the military campaign, including Israel launching a nuclear strike. This is something that I brought up. To you guys from day one. I was like, there's always the nuclear escalation up the escalation ladder. It's the final solution, right? There's no guarantee that even if nukes are deployed, that Iran would stop, right? I've been fearful that Israel could potentially go nuclear if they felt too threatened, if their defenses had been diminished to such a spectacular degree. Instead of being restrained by the United States of America, they could go up the nuclear escalation ladder and change the world in an irreparable way. But if you are wondering why, there isn't enough motion, enough anger and resentment, sufficient defenses launched by congressional representatives on the Democratic Party side, it certainly is. It certainly is because, as Adam Johnson correctly points to, most of Congress and our media agrees with what Trump is doing, even if they quibble about style and process. The liberal establishment cannot run the regime change propaganda ball 90 yards, then incredibly hand-wring about the play call to punch it in. It falls flat. This is something that I brought up in the buildup as well. I kept repeating over and over again. You can't say you disagree with the actions Trump is taking, but you agree with the principles as to why he's taking those actions. That's the whole point of Donald Trump. He's a madman willing to do things that pussy Democrats won't. That's how he presents himself to his audience. That's how he presents himself to his base. His base likes that. So if you as a Democrat are not making a convincing case as to why these actions are wholly unjustifiable, unbelievably violent, unbelievably costly, totally illegal, and you turn around and you say, well, we hate the Ayatollah. It's good that he died. It's good that we're killing him. You can't turn around and just say, well, but the process has not been followed. Your criticism rings hollow, and that's not where the base is anyway. Okay? If Iran is indeed ontologically evil and mercilessly mowed down 40 billion protesters, then there isn't much substantive critique that can be made here. Schumer and Jeffries in particular have never veered away from process because on the merits, they agree with Trump. Exactly. They might not agree with the instability, at least on an aesthetic posture, right? That's the thing, right? On the aesthetics, they say that they're upset about the process. They say They're upset about the way it looks. And there's a reason for it, because it is an unpopular war. So Democrats will then cynically use this unpopular war that they were on board with, that they didn't launch a sufficient defense against, for in a moment where they should have, right? They will then turn around and blame Trump for following along with something that they also were on board with. It's a win-win for them because they're thinking about this totally in a sociopathic manner. Deeply reported story by Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan about an extraordinary pitch presentation Netanyahu made to convince Trump to go to war with Iran. Another moment of vindication, by the way. In the Situation Room on February 11th, Mr. Netanyahu made a hard sell, suggesting that Iran was ripe for regime change and expressing the belief that a joint U.S.-Israeli mission could finally bring an end to the Islamic Republic. At one point, the Israelis played for Mr. Trump a brief video that included a montage of potential new leaders who could take over the country if the hardline government fell. Among those featured was Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last Shah, now a Washington-based dissident who had tried to position himself as a secular leader who could shepherd Iran towards a post-theocratic government. Ironically enough, in and around the 2000 era, in the war on terror era, Pahlavi had also presented himself as someone who was a devout Muslim, a nationalist, right? Someone who would shy away from having open allegiances to the state of Israel. And now the situation has changed. The dynamic has changed. So he's openly a puppet of the state of Israel, not realizing that obviously actually deteriorates his base of support inside of Iran, because Israel and America are responsible for killing schoolgirls, blowing up medical facilities, blowing up hospitals, and now threatening to blow up civilian infrastructure. Now, you never will be a part of any sort of Iranian governance in the future. It's over. It's done. I mean, it was never going to happen anyway because he's an incompetent idiot, but it's absolutely over now, right? Who could have predicted that? The point is, if I, as a 34-year-old Twitch streamer, political commentator with no inside information, can foresee this stuff, and you can as well, where the fuck were the Americans, right? Where are the intelligence analysts? They were there too, make no mistake. They were there. They were informing Donald Trump. Donald Trump chose not to listen to them because he was too busy listening to the PowerPoint presentations being presented to him by, Adolf Hitler's reincarnated corpse, Benjamin Netanyahu. Mr. Netanyahu and his team outlined conditions they portrayed as pointing to a near certain victory. Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks. Also wrong. The regime would be so weakened that it could not choke off the Strait of Hormuz. Spectacularly wrong. And the likelihood that Iran would land blows against U.S. interests in neighboring countries was assessed as minimal, perhaps the most wrong. Notice how all of the things that Benjamin Netanyahu was telling Donald Trump was directly at odds with his own intelligence assessment from the American intelligence community. It was entirely wrong. And not only was it so wrong that his generals also warned him against doing such a thing, obviously they still pulled the trigger because they're loyal dogs to Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump is a servile dog to Israel, they end up becoming loyal, servile dogs to Israel themselves. But the reality of the matter is every single person knew exactly how devastating this would be, and yet they leaned into it. This is part of the reason why I kept repeating over and over again that we have to cut Israel out of the equation, okay? And that still is a demand that I am making. We have to cut Israel out of this process. We have to restrain them. We have to bring them to heel. They have to be reminded that they are not the dominant force here. We are. Okay, the United States of America holds the cards in that relationship. The United States of America and Israel don't hold the cards when it comes to the Iranian debacle that we have found ourselves in, right? Where we're so desperate that we're threatening war crimes over and over again, seemingly with the hopes that will cause the Iranian government to throw away their upper hand that they currently have in this war, as America and Israel have not achieved any of their military goals. None of their war goals have been achieved. That much is clear, right? If they are dogs, I'm sure you know how to handle them too soon. Yeah, exactly. We need to put a proverbial shock collar. Threatening war crimes while already doing war crimes in a war of aggression. Exactly. $8 p.m. after extended hour stock market. Yeah. But that's where we're at. Pretty shocking that people are leaking direct quotes to Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan. The president then turned to General Kane. General, what do you think? General Kane replied, "Sir, this is, in my experience, standard operating procedure for the Israelis. They oversell, and their plans are not always well developed. They know they need us, and that's why they're hard selling." Mr. Trump quickly weighed the assessment. Regime change, he said, would be their problem. It was unclear whether he was referring to the Israelis or the Iranian people. But the bottom line was that his decision on whether to go to war against Iran would not hinge on whether parts 3 or parts 4 of Mr. Netanyahu's presentation were achievable. We now know that none of them were achievable, and this assessment is correct. General Kane was right, and I said it at the time as well. General Kane was in those rooms. He recognized the lies Israel was pitching Donald Trump. He recognized that Donald Trump was not listening to him. So what did he do? And this is not a guy that I align with ideologically. I mean, this is a monster, right? But what did I say in the buildup, in the naval assets buildup that was taking place? What did I say? General Kane went to every single media outlet that would listen and leaked to them basically that this was going to be a war of choice that would devastate America's force projection capabilities and destroy America's munitions. He openly said this, right? He went to every outlet. Why did he do that? Why did such a high-ranking individual in America's in the American military go to the media in the buildup, in the lead up to this 38-day quagmire that we're in, where Trump is now officially threatening the nuclear option in many respects, because he understood that the Israelis were fucking lying, and he tried to pressure Trump by way of the media. Okay. And what did Trump do? He was like, "No, General Kane loves me. Nope. Yeah, it's not an ideological objection either, since he didn't do this with Venezuela. It's just calculation." Exactly. Of course, these guys are monsters. This is what I was trying to explain to people when there were State Department officials that were coming out early on when Biden was bear hugging Netanyahu and saying, "Go all the way," right? They were saying, "I have plenty of objections, not because I care about the humanity of Palestinians necessarily, but I care about advancing the interests of empire." There were people in the CIA, people in the State Department that has spent years and years, gun running for these horrible criminal entities. And they were like, "We can't continue this because Israel's going to do a genocide. We know that is going to happen. We have to put an end to it." And the American government at the time, under the leadership of Biden, was taking the wrong approach. This would greatly diminish America's force projection capabilities. This would turn Israel into a pariah state. We have to restrain Israel for the sake of Israel. And no one in a leadership role is actually looking at this with a sober approach. And that's where we're at. 77-year-old House Dem facing younger primary challenger seek to impeach Donald Trump. Larson charged Trump with murder, war crimes, and piracy over Venezuela military intervention and the naval blockade. Representative John Larson is mounting a long shot bid to impeach President Donald Trump as he stares down a primary threat from younger challenges. I don't know how much teeth this kind of stuff has. But it's very funny that Fox News is presenting it as like a primary challenge that's lighting a fire under the ass of a Democrat, right? It's it doesn't even, at this point, it doesn't even matter if it's like, if that's the motivator or not, right? Anyway, let's hear from the Iranian side as well after we're done with this video.
To the president as options for this particular mission. So the markets are nervous. They are not trading aggressively down, but they are taking this threat seriously. That's not one or the only indicator, but it's one indicator of how the global economy is viewing all this, Gail. And if there is one restraining mechanism on all this, it's not the polling data in the United States. The president acknowledged that in Nancy's piece, sure. But the economic catastrophe globally that might come from a set of strikes like this is the one restraining mechanism on the president. That's the one thing that he has always been hesitant to play with, because he considers it actual economic fire for the globe and for the United States. So that is a backdrop here. But you've got to take the president's rhetoric and his intent rather seriously.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very unsettling and, to be honest, quite frightening. But this deadline has been delayed before. What happens if President Trump delays again? And do you think that's likely?
I don't know if it's likely or not, Gail, but again, you can look at the president's rhetoric and find ways in which he could do this. The president said regime change has already been accomplished and that these new leaders, we don't know who they are, he never says who they are more reasonable, smarter, and sharper, that he could create a deal. And if he creates a deal, even if it's just temporary, the world would relax. But until there's a full ceasefire and an end of all hostilities, no one will relax fully here in Washington or in any global capital.
All right, Major, thank you very much. To hear more of Major on all of this and all the big stories from Washington today, tune into The Takeout, airing weeknights at 5 o'clock on CBS News 24/7.
Smoke's been rising above Tel Aviv after an Iranian missile landed in the north of the city. This was the scene after a projectile fell in the Ramat HaSharon district. Alarms also sounded in Eilat and central Israel. Explosions were heard in the...
Yeah, Israeli army has struck railways after threatening to strike railways once again. Civilian infrastructure that they're claiming is dual use, another act of terrorism. AOC also had some words to say about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's threats to kill an entire civilization. I mean, what a fucking ridiculous thing to say. This is a threat of genocide and merits removal from office. The president's mental faculties are collapsing and cannot be trusted. To every individual in the president's chain of command, you have a duty to refuse illegal orders. That includes carrying out this threat. Yeah. Pahlavi Reza also had some choice words. To the armed forces of Iran, you're the heirs of the legacy of the patriotic and honorable commanders of this land. How can you remain silent and inactive in the face of brazen presidents and boast of foreign agents and criminals affiliated with the Islamic Republic in the streets of Iran? Buddy, where are you at? Buddy, you are the foreign agent, okay? You have behaved as the foreign agent. You have aligned with these malignant forces that are actively seeking out the destruction of this thousands of years old culture. They are destroying schools. They're destroying facilities that people use. Colleges, universities, places where academic research is conducted. You're aligned with them. Get the fuck out of here. You're sending these messages from goddamn Langley talking about rise up in arms. Rise up in arms against who? Israel and America? Or rise up in arms against the government that is the only thing standing in the way of imminent death and destruction? Now, the United States also bombed dozens of Iranian military targets on Kharg Island overnight. So here's what I think is happening. Okay, are you ready for this? Here's what I think is happening. I'm going to give you best case scenario and worst case scenario. Okay? Best case scenario is it's Taco Trump. It's Taco Tuesday. Trump extends once again. It's yet another real is yet another real moment where people understand that Trump doesn't have the leverage, and he's cognizant of that fact, right? Because Iran keeps saying, we're not going to fucking negotiate on half measures here. You have to give us real assurances. Here are the demands that we're making, right? And they have the upper hand. If they didn't have the upper hand, Donald Trump wouldn't actually expand the targets directly to civilian infrastructure, power plants and whatnot, right? They wouldn't do that. If they were able to successfully deteriorate Iran's striking capabilities, Iran wouldn't be able to strike Israel. They would be able to deploy aircraft over the Iranian airspace and destroy these facilities with ease, right? None of that has happened. So that's part of the reason why he's threatening. So best case scenario is it's fucking Taco Tuesday, okay? Donald Trump doesn't engage in the nuclear strike, doesn't destroy the power plants, okay? And there's an extension, right? He just claims once again that these guys, Iran is conceding, right? Falsely claiming that Iran is conceding. And obviously, intelligent people recognize the dynamic here, hopefully, and they understand. That's what we're looking for. We're hoping, inshallah, for Taco Tuesday, okay? The less worse, but still bad scenario is Trump tacos off of bombing the power plants and the bridges, but still is using that chaos and fear to actually try to launch a special operation on Karg Island or numerous other islands and try to take over the Iranian coastline in this, most likely very deadly military campaign that will unfold. Even if they take out the conventional forces on the ground, whether it be in Karg Island or in any number of different islands that they've entertained bombing, entertained invading, they will not be able to successfully hold these places, obviously. I've gone through the many different reasons as to why this would be most likely a failure. But that's like the second best worst case scenario, is that he doesn't bomb the power plants and these facilities, civilian infrastructure, and instead tries to do a military operation. It's still bad, right? But who knows? Worst case scenario is they use a nuclear first strike. That Israel or America, most likely Israel, deploys a nuclear weapon. There's no assurances that would actually lead to successful deterrence from Iran, but it will be a world-changing event, right? Because if America or Israel were to either blow up the power plants and blow up civilian infrastructure, or even deploy a nuke, that would be devastating. That would change the world, right? That would change the world completely. The deployment of nukes would change the calculation entirely for countries that have nukes. And there is no guarantee that would actually stop the Iranian retaliation anyway, considering the mosaic structure that they have. And even if they don't nuke, I'm saying, like, even if they were to, the second worst case scenario beyond nukes would obviously be still blowing up the power plants and following through with these threats of doing terrorism. And in that situation, again, no guarantee that Iran stops its retaliation, and Iran would most likely retaliate in kind and completely eviscerate the Gulf. Iran would destroy the desalination plants in the Gulf. Iran would destroy as many Israeli targets as they possibly can as well. It would be a nightmare. It is a nightmare scenario if 20% of the entire world's oil and gas supply is destroyed overnight. There's obviously other options here as well, mining the strait, rendering all commercial traffic impossible. I don't know. I mean, it would be It would be unbelievably violent. So those are the options. And I do think personally that Trump will taco here, hopefully, especially considering that. Shut off the Bab el Mandeb as well, with the Houthis. So shut off the entry point into the Red Sea before I forget. That's another threat that Iran has also presented. Okay, March's pants, though. Yeah, he has great pants. So yeah. I mean, I'm fine with being late. Yeah, you should communicate that to them. We can be a little bit later because like coming there early is not. Yeah, I would be down to do that. Totally. Why did the war even start? Here, I'll show you a video. This will perhaps help you understand why the war started. Here is Israeli TV that has now begun a countdown for Trump's deadline on Iran.
אולי מופלטות בחדר הדיונים של המשא ומתן יזרזו קצת את העניינים.
וואי, זה חיי סמך לבב אנוש, ברור.
ואתם רואים כאן את ליאור ורוצלבסקי שחזרה אלינו כדי להגיש את המהדורה במשך 8 השעות הקרובות. כל הכבוד לשולחן. דדליין.
They're so happy. Are you anti-Semitic? Just think how happy you are making some Israeli generals right now. Think about how happy they are. Do you want to take that happiness away? You're basically an anti-Semite of the highest order. Remember who this is for, okay? Remember who you're fighting for, not just the Epstein class. Every time you pay a higher markup, remember that that's basically an Israel tax, okay? So you should feel confident. You should feel elated at why you're paying extra at the pump, okay? It should be a moment of excitement for you because you're helping the most moral nation on the planet, the only nation that matters on the planet, the greatest, holiest nation of all. After all, if you didn't feel elated, I would demand that you subsequently get deplatformed, canceled, and hopefully lose your job. If you weren't excited at the prospect of waging Israel's war, I mean, you should probably go to prison. Really. Am Israel Chai, ladies and gentlemen. You know what the Hasanabi broadcast official position is. The most moral nation on the planet, Israel is the only nation that matters. For me personally, when I think about the gas price and the inflation, I think to myself, well, this is for good reason. At least I know that Israelis are happy. Israelis are so happy that this is happening. Someone in the chat said, "Fuck Israel." Excuse me, mods, shoot that guy. Is it anti-Semitic that to bring up that Israel destroyed a synagogue? I mean, what was the synagogue wearing? Yeah. 35% off, 5+ gift subs train. Oh, hell yeah. I didn't even realize. Thank you, chatter. Subscribe to the Piker Broadcasting Service, ladies and gentlemen. The Piker Broadcasting Service is committed to editorial independence, and your subscriptions in the form of a free one with a Twitch Prime or your $6 a month subscriptions or your gifted subs are what allow me to maintain my editorial independence and say no to big corporate sponsors and donations such as Poly Market, which they'll never let me live down, obviously. Captain Ajax, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. Yeah. Footage published by Iran's Fars news agency shows pro-government protesters forming what Fars describes as a human chain in front of the Kazarun combined cycle power plant in light of President Trump's deadline for a deal. I know. We're going to be talking about that in a second. What happened to Asmongold? I don't know. I guess he got banned. So yeah. I'm seeing the messages. Yeah. Anyway. My dog doesn't support Israel. Should I take him back to the pound? Put a shock collar on him. Connor Gray, thank you for the 10 gifted. All right. Yeah, it's 35% off gifted subs. We're at level 5 hype train. Gorlock, thank you. All right. So what is Iran saying in all of this? What's the Iranian response so far? Well, because they have an upper hand in these conversations, because America has not actually achieved any of its military objectives and is now just like flinging around wildly like a madman, increasing the Hitlerian intensity of the commentary and the threats. A senior Iranian source tells Reuters, Iran will close Bab el-Mandeb if the situation escalates, utilizing the Ansar Allah movement and the Houthis. They've done so before. U.S. has not changed its tone. No negotiations with the Americans. Iran will strike power plants in response to energy attacks. Entire region plunged into darkness, including Saudi Arabia. Iran last night hit a Saudi refinery, a facility that is responsible for 7% of the Saudi oil supply. They hit an industrial facility last night, lighting it on fire. Saudi Arabia claimed that it was, some of the intercepted missiles that fell on top of the facility. It was bullshit or whatever, but obviously those were successive and successful strikes, right? That was, I think, a threat for more to come. The Iranian goal there is very clear. They're trying to get the GCC to apply pressure to Donald Trump with the hopes that they don't have to escalate. Also, before cutting off direct diplomacy with the U.S., Iran told Pakistan that it believed it was winning and retained 15,000 missiles and 45,000 drones in its arsenal. Now, of course, they're probably exaggerating the numbers, but it's clear that they still have significant capabilities, right? Even before Iran cut off direct diplomacy with the U.S., it was sticking to a hardline position in the negotiations and showed no signs of backing down. Tehran told Pakistan, which is mediating the talks, that it believed it was winning and that it retained 15,000 missiles and 45,000 drones in its arsenal, according to mediators and a person familiar with the matter. Mediators said the numbers were likely exaggerated, but reflected Iran's unflinching negotiating position. The U.S. and Israel are continuing to strike Iran with force as President Trump's ultimatum deadline nears. Iran has threatened to retaliate with large-scale strikes on Gulf countries and Israeli power and energy infrastructure, according to mediators on Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And now we have B-52s taking off, departing the Royal Air Force Base in Fairford. Local videos show loaded B-52, 7-hour combat flight time. Iran puts them in striking range by 8 p.m. As far as Trump's inside, as far as the people around Trump that are warning him against taking this kind of chaotic and violent action that will breed even more instability and destroy global energy markets, of course. It seems my hair is out of control. I'm gonna have to fix it before I go and appear in front of people because I can't wear the New York DSA hat, but I'll do that later. J.D. Vance is one of the only people inside of the room that's like demanding some restraint from Trump. It seems. Hey, Hassan, I think you forgot that Trump won the FIFA Peace Prize. It's true, he did. It's true, he did do that. Obviously, he would never entertain disparaging the beautiful, wonderful, incredible FIFA Peace Prize. He would not tarnish the good reputation of the FIFA Peace Prize, right? He would never do that. That would be a horrible mistake. A distinguished award. Its legacy will reverberate The Nobel Peace Prize and the committee there feel horrible for failing to give Trump the Peace Prize that he deserved. Mr. Hegseth and Mr. Kaine ran through the sequencing of the attacks that Mr. Trump said he wanted to go around the table and hear everyone's views. Mr. Vance, whose disagreement with the whole premise was well established, addressed the president. I think this is a bad idea, but if you want to do it, I support you. Ms. Wiles, Susie Wiles, told Mr. Trump that if he felt the need to proceed for America's national security, then he should go ahead. All cucks, all of them. Mr. Ratcliffe offered no opinion on whether to proceed, but he discussed the stunning new intelligence that the Iranian leadership was about to gather in the Ayatollah's compound in Tehran. The CIA director told the president that regime change was possible depending on how the term was defined. If we just mean killing the supreme leader, we can probably do that, he said. When called on, Mr. Warrington, the White House counsel, said it was a legally permissible option in terms of how the plan had been conceived by the U.S. officials and presented to the president. He did not offer a personal opinion, but when pressed by the president to provide one, he said that as a Marine veteran, he had known an American service member killed by Iran years earlier. This issue remained deeply personal. He told the president that if Israel intended to proceed regardless, the United States should do so as well. Yeah, this is also important to understand. So there's like very little restraint coming from the inside, but there's also very little restraint. There's some restraint coming from the Democrats, some demands of restraint coming from the Democrats, which is good. It's a little too late, but it's good nonetheless. But also on top of that, there is virtually no response from the global leadership. Muted reaction from world leaders to the U.S. president threatening to obliterate Iran in one night. When Putin hinted at nukes, there was talk of sanctions, international isolation, even threats of World War III. We don't even get words of condemnation in response to this. It's unfucking believable. The amount of cruelty that America can subject the rest of the world to is unbearable. I cannot believe it. Like, these guys have no interest in maintaining normalcy at all. They will cast everything aside when America wishes it. It's crazy. No one wants to talk to you guys? That's cope. That's cope. It's not that no one wants to talk to us, okay? It's not that no one wants to talk to us. It's that we are not a restrainable force is the assessment. Like our European allies are just they've decided like there's nothing to do here, and there is something to do. Any kind of pressure works. Yeah, Fizz is right, by the way. Chad, if you already seen people claiming that Hassan always just says America equals bad, remember that he's the only one saying the truth. Exactly. It's shameful. What we're doing is shameful. I want America to be a force for good, not a force for evil. And unfortunately, as it stands currently, we are a force for evil around the planet. We are a malignant force. Okay, that's fine. Anyway, when called on, Mr. Warrington, the White House counsel, said it was legally permissible. Mr. Chung laid out the likely public relations fallout. Mr. Trump had run for office opposed to further wars. People had not voted for conflict overseas. The plans ran contrary to everything the administration had said after the bombing campaign against Iran in June. How would they explain away 8 months of insisting that Iranian nuclear facilities have been totally obliterated? Mr. Trump gave neither a yes or no, but he said that whatever decision Mr. Trump made would be the right one. Ms. Leavitt told the president that this was his decision and that the press team would manage it as best as they could. Mr. Hegseth adopted a narrow position. They would have to take care of Iranians eventually, so they might as well do it now. I mean, you got a team of fucking drunk rapists and loyalists and cattle. Of course, they're not going to give you alternative options. Like, everyone's assessment in the room is that, yeah, this shit's probably going to suck. It's entirely antagonistic to everything that you won on. It's contradictory to everything that you claim to believe, but it doesn't matter. Oh my God. Politico Also got another hit in. Adam Wren. New playbook. Abdul El-Sayed declines to part ways with Hassan the Hun's post that Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler ahead of his 2 rallies with the streamer today. I mean, when you're threatening genocide against the whole people, that speaks for itself, El-Sayed said. I mean, yeah, it's true. Mr. Hassan Dawn Piker, today's my birthday. For a birthday present, you should totally whip in Nene on stream right now. I don't want Politico to demand comments from Abdul El-Sayed for my unsuccessful attempts at whipping and Neneing today. Okay, another snippet. Tucker Carlson, the commentator who had emerged as another prominent skeptic of the intervention on the right, had come to the Oval Office several times over the previous year to warn Mr. Trump that a war with Iran would destroy his presidency. A couple of weeks before the war began, Mr. Trump, who had known Mr. Carlson for years, tried to reassure him over the phone. I know you're worried about it, but it's going to be okay, the president said. Mr. Carlson asked how he knew. Because it always is, Mr. Trump replied. Oh, my God. Happy birthday, chatter, by the way. Oh, because it always is. It always is. Yeah. Tucker Carlson also had one of the best responses I've seen to Donald Trump. Like, I mean, it totally directly admonishing him. You know? I tried to Mitch to host Abdul, and they refused, calling you and him anti-Semitic, and they will not push those voices. What? University of Michigan? I'm a grad student at UMich Ford School of Public Policy, and I want to show you around the school and point out their Zionism. I try to get their Markhams to reach out, but they said they need to protect Jewish voices. This behavior needs to be called out. I'll give you a tour before you leave Ann Arbor. Yeah, that's not going to happen, big dog. Sorry. But also, I'm literally speaking at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, so, like, obviously, the school has a different approach to this. So, can the EU and GCC vassals stop this? Because what did we Asians do to deserve this energy crisis? I mean, nothing. You just are at the mercy of America's instability. And once again, remember, we here in the heart of empire, we here in the imperial core, legitimately suffer the least amount of consequences. There's still a little bit of friction, obviously, right? There will still be a little bit of friction because, you know, gas, the oil is a global commodity, which has inelastic demand. So they're going to need to get it, right? Countries that can't get it from the Strait of Hormuz are still going to have to get it somehow. And that is the reason why the price of a barrel goes up regardless. And you know, that is obviously consequential on inflation. But that's a marginal problem for everyday Americans in comparison to, like, the horrifying realities that we've brought about to the rest of the world, right? In any case, General Kane was sober, laying out the risks and what the campaign would mean for munitions depletion. He offered no opinion. His position was that if Mr. Trump ordered the operation, the military would execute. Both of the president's top military leaders previewed how the campaign would unfold as the U.S. capacity to degrade Iran's military capabilities. When it was his turn to speak, Mr. Rubio offered moral clarity, telling the president, if our goal is regime change or an uprising, we shouldn't do it. But if the goal is to destroy Iran's missile program, that's a goal we can achieve. Again, wrong. It was a demonstrable failure. It's been a demonstrable failure. It has not worked at all. And if anything, that unironically shows that the initial goals that they set out, as I told you over and over again, the true goals that they had were accomplishing military objectives, right? Anything new on potentially Trump backing out? I've seen some Axios reports, but it doesn't mean much. I still think that there is a taco moment here, hopefully. Maybe it's hopium, but here is part of the reason why. Trump signals extension possible on Iran strike deadline. President Trump told Fox News that the U.S. is prepared to strike Iran after his 8 p.m. deadline, but that could change if talks show something concrete. He did not set odds for a strike tonight.
I just got off the phone with the president, and he called, and I said, listen, if you were to put odds on it, what were the odds that this is going to end up being a negotiated deal? He said he wasn't going to put odds on it, but he said 8 p.m. is happening. That's what he said. He said, it is, if we get to that point, there is going to be an attack like they have not seen. Now, he's sticking to that at this point. Now, he said if negotiations move forward today and there is something concrete, that could change. But at this hour, he didn't want to put odds on it, but he said it is moving forward with the plans that we have.
Again, we are unironically at the mercy of a madman. You know what, like, a lot of people would say about Hillary Clinton, like, oh, what if she has her period and then she has the nuclear launch codes? Like, what these guys would say about Hillary Clinton is totally a direct thing you can say about Donald Trump, who is demonstrating that he is inconsistent and a total fucking psycho. Okay? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. President Trump told Fox News the U.S. is prepared to strike Iran. Like, it's like, how are we allowing this ticking time bomb to have the entire planet's future in his grip? Anyway, there's also more on the Democratic response or lack thereof, obviously. Matt Iglesias, one problem for Democrats is that left-wing people pretend they aren't doing stuff when they are, in fact, doing in order to further fuel the flames of anti-establishment sentiment. Daniel Denver says, it's incredible how absent Democratic Party leadership is in the face of Trump blowing up the entire fucking world. Hakeem Jeffries has tweeted twice. And that's what Matt Iglesias points to for one of the most popular, or not popular, one of the most powerful Democrats in the country. Okay, he's not very popular. He's popular in his district, but not very popular nationally for good reason. This is the reason why. It's incredible. Hakeem Jeffries is not a fucking Twitch streamer, man. What are you talking about? I've tweeted more about Donald Trump than he has. What the hell does that do? Like, this is it? He did this? That's all it is? On February 18th, the New York Times broke the news Trump was sending a war armada to Iran. Jeffries did not issue a formal statement about Iran until February 26th, 8 days later, which was entirely process criticism, right? Then proceeded to schedule a war powers vote for the week after the bombing started. Jeffries has yet to make a moral case against the war, only offering limp, sleepy, and incoherent process objections. Jeffries tried to ignore it altogether until Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie forced him to respond. Hakeem Jeffries allowed another war powers vote to be delayed for a month for no discernible reason. Okay, you got to take it? All right, take it. Boom. All right, let's get it started. Fox has a timer now too. Great, fantastic. At 8 p.m. tonight. In 8 hours and 30 minutes almost, approximately, we will know. We will know what the fate of the future holds, you know? So just remember, this isn't just simply like farming outrage against the Democrats. It's important for people to understand like what the Democratic Party could have done as far as like successful messaging strategies that they could have implemented ahead of time, and also what kind of legislative pressure they could apply in this circumstance so that when the moment comes, like right now, they would have a built-in defense mechanism. They would have a response. They could have paperwork that they could point to. They could have people on the record. Right? Or is it 8 p.m. EST? I thought they pushed it back to 8 p.m. EST. Oh, shit. It's not. Oh, you're right. That's not in 8 hours. That's Pacific time. On my laptop, I'm on Pacific time. Apologies. I fucked it up. It's 8 p.m. EST, which is in, holy shit. That is actually, oh my God, dude. It's in 5.5 hours. What the hell? You're staying live? Yes, I will actually be doing a speech while it's happening, ironically enough, once again. Anyway, Alex Jordan of Quincy Institute says a majority of Democrats in the House and Senate voted to give Trump nearly $1 trillion for war in 2026. Now we're supposed to act like this party isn't a willing partner in the ruinous U.S. foreign policy, but rather a bulwark against war. Gonna take more than some angry tweets. Yeah, and they also obviously delayed the vote on the Iran War Powers Resolution. That was also completely ridiculous. You know, Senator Schumer, who has been Mr. Taco.
To negotiate.
Yeah, this was one of the only instances where Senator Schumer actually had a significant issue with Donald Trump. This was back in June 2nd, 2025, where he gave the game away, saying, Trump is Mr. Taco. If he's going to deal with Iran, if he's going to do side deals with Iran and try to create a negotiation environment, then he needs to let the people know, how dare you not blow up Iran? What the fuck's wrong with you? That was his attitude then. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. Bro, Trump keeps double booking you with his threats on World War III. True. No side deals. Yeah. Axios, Trump might be the most hawkish person in the top echelons of his administration on Iran, according to a U.S. source who spoke to him several times in recent days. Said one U.S. official, the president is the most bloodthirsty, like a mad dog. Hegseth and Rubio sound like the doves compared to the president. That's great. I love hearing stuff like that. That gives me a lot of confidence about what the future holds here. All right, we got to move on right now. We got to mobilize. I'm going to run these videos as we travel, and I'm also going to offer. I'm going to continue to offer commentary from the car ride to the place that we're going to. We're going to Michigan State University first. Yeah, and we're going to be in a van with Abdullah and Summerlee. So let's do it.
Israeli city of Nahariya, after Hezbollah fired rockets from Lebanon, at least 10 projectiles were launched towards the north in the latest barrage. Israeli medics say 2 people were injured in that attack. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has confirmed Israeli warplanes struck bridges and railways in Iran, which he says were used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard.
Yesterday, our pilots destroyed transport planes and dozens of helicopters at an Iranian Air Force base. Today, Israeli pilots attacked the railways and bridges used by the Revolutionary Guards. They used them to transport raw materials for weapons, and the actors who attack us, the United States and the countries of the region, the same actors who also oppress the Iranian people.
Well, let's bring in Nora. She's following developments in Israel from near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. So Nora, reports, as I mentioned there, these explosions heard in several locations in Israel. These rockets mostly fired by Hezbollah. At the same time, Benjamin Netanyahu coming out and saying very clearly that his plans, his strategy for Iran doesn't seem to be doing anything more than escalating.
That's right. And in the past 2 hours, we've seen warnings of 3 volleys of Iranian missiles, 1 in the south and 2 to the center area. We're hearing of initial reports of perhaps an impact site in Tahtikva, which has been repeatedly attacked. Tahtikva has several military industry factories. One of them was hit earlier in the week. Now, the political rhetoric is certainly one of escalation, not just from the Israeli prime minister, but even the defense minister. The rumblings in Israel, if you will, is that Donald Trump shouldn't take what's on the table, what mediators are offering, because anything short of absolute victory, of total decimation of the current government, of creating the conditions to completely collapse this system of government, would be tantamount to defeat. And the Israeli prime minister in particular has really tied his fate to this war. So you do not hear words of the possibility of reaching compromise. You hear the exact opposite, and that's why we saw those reports of Benjamin Netanyahu speaking to Donald Trump, counseling him to reject all those offers. Strategists of the Likud party of Netanyahu even talking about scenarios that are far more violent than just aerial bombardment of the air grid, of the energy and power grid, and other vital infrastructure. That hit list, according to sources, is already in place, coordinated with the U.S. Army and waiting for the green light from Washington.
Nora Day and Ramallah, thank you.
We are just learning of new reports of explosions on Karg Island. This handles almost all of Iran's oil exports, about 90%. If you look at that map, it's actually, you can see it all the way up there at the top of the Persian Gulf there, just off the coast of Iran. President Trump has repeatedly threatened to bomb or seize the island, and there have been strikes before. Oil prices have been spiking over the last few minutes since the reports have been coming in of these strikes, up about 2 to 3% in the numbers that I've seen. Again, now over 3% there in some cases. Brent crude up more than 1%. Let's get right to CNN's Jim Sciutto, who's in Tel Aviv, monitoring the situation. Jim, what are you learning about this?
Yeah. John, I just spoke to a U.S. official who confirms to CNN that the U.S. struck targets on Karg Island overnight. To be clear, this U.S. official says these targets were military targets on Karg Island, not oil facilities. To your point in the introduction, John, the U.S. has previously struck military targets on Karg Island going back to the middle of March, and that appears to be what they've done again this time. And that's an important distinction, of course, because, yes, the president has held out the possibility of striking oil facilities there, which would have an impact far beyond Karg Island, given that this is where more than 90% of Iran's oil exports come out of. But again, the U.S. official confirming strikes, but making clear that those strikes are solely on military targets on Karg Island.
Again, the reason we're distinguishing those two, because the president has said by tonight, and we have a countdown clock actually over in the corner right there, by 8 o'clock Eastern time tonight, which is now 11 hours, 56 minutes, and 54 seconds, the president has said if Iran does not open the Strait of Hormuz, if there is no deal reached, he will hit all bridges and all power plants. All, he says, in the nation of Iran. Again, so we're monitoring the situation very closely. New word of these strikes on Karg Island. Jim Sciutto in Tel Aviv, thank you for bringing us up to speed there. Kate?
All right, joining us now to talk about this, CNN Global Affairs analyst Kim Dozier, retired Army Brigadier General Steve Anderson. General, let me just ask you about this breaking news. As Jim Sciutto is reporting, a U.S. official confirms that there were U.S. strikes on targets on Karg Island overnight, military targets, Jim is told, not oil facilities, not some of those key energy facilities that have been now clearly threatened by President Trump. Take that, even though the United States has hit targets on Karg Island before, when you look at it in the context and against the backdrop of this looming deadline, what do you make of it?
Well, thank you, Kate. What it tells me is that they're considering perhaps a ground invasion of Karg Island. The fact that they are not going after oil infrastructures, but they're going after military targets on the island, sounds to me like they're trying to soften the defenses in anticipation, perhaps, of some kind of deployment of U.S. ground forces into Karg Island, which I'd like to go on the record for saying I think would be a serious mistake. But we do have the Immediate Ready Brigade from the 82nd Airborne that is pre-positioned somewhere in the theater. Probably Al Udeid might be in Kuwait. They're probably just a couple hours away. The 31st MEU that we've heard about quite a bit, I believe they are still in the mouth of the Persian Gulf, so they're probably a good 10 to 12 hours away. And of course, in order to get to Karg Island, they're going to have to go through the Strait of Hormuz, because that would be really problematic. So I think the only real alternative here would be the 82nd Airborne Immediate Ready Brigade. And again, I believe that they're probably softening defenses and perhaps at least threatening to conduct ground operations at Karg Island.
The president has put out a new message on social media. Can we put it up? Let's read it because it's about the deadline tonight. He wrote, "A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran," the president ends with. General, just your reaction to what he just wrote.
Well, we already knew that Donald Trump was a pretty bad president, but now we know that he's an absolutely terrible commander-in-chief as well. I mean, he continues to vacillate. It offers contradictory messaging about what's going on, and, you know, does he support the Iranian people? Does he not? Does he want regime change? Does he not? Do the allies with us? Does he need them? Does he not? I mean, it goes on and on and on. We're seeing more of that, everything he's writing. But, I mean, again, this guy is just not competent in terms of leading this force. He has not set clear objectives, clear definable objectives that the military can truly execute. And I think that at 8 p.m. tonight, I believe that he'll figure out a way to either extend the deadline, because there's no way that he can do what he says he's going to do, which is to bomb every single civilian target in the theater and in Iran. And if he were to do that, it would be, as Kim suggests, it would be the commitment of a great war crime. And I'm old enough to remember the Nuremberg trials and how we've held the Germans accountable after what the atrocities they committed during World War II. And I'd hate to think, 5-10 years from now, we'd be doing the same kind of thing with American soldiers and leaders that made decisions that were being directed by the President of the United States that are illegal.
Let's go right to CNN's Becky Anderson, who is in Abu Dhabi, watching the situation there. These two new data points, Becky, the new strikes on Karg Island, which we haven't seen for a few days, and this really new incendiary threat from President Trump. How is it, or how do you think it will be received in the region?
And it's interesting, just about an hour ago, the Qatar spokesman for the Prime Minister, who is also the Foreign Minister, held a press conference. This was round about the time that these reports started coming out. And let me just read you very specifically what he said. He said, "We are close to the point where the situation in the region could spiral out of control." That really feels like, from the Qatar perspective, that they are suggesting an inflection point at this point, this Tuesday. Let's remember, 8 p.m. Eastern time, which would be the end of the deadline, were that deadline not to be pushed on Tuesday, would be 3:30 in the morning, Tehran time, 4 in the morning, for example, here in Abu Dhabi. So for the last, I'd say, 24 hours, this has been a region that has been on tenterhooks about what might happen next. You know that this entire region is absolutely determined. It insists that this conflict cannot end until the Strait of Hormuz is reopened effectively, and that the regional security here is sort of ring-fenced. But at this point, it doesn't feel like we are at the point at which we are looking at a deal, or indeed the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. We just heard from J.D. Vance in Hungary. He suggested that these talks behind the scenes between the Pakistanis, Egypt, Turkey, and the US and Iran may provide us a bit of a window here, and we might see that deadline then pushed by Donald Trump. But meantime, of course, the question you asked me is, we have just seen two really important data points here, not least that of Karg Island. Let's remind ourselves, Karg Island is an absolute sort of trophy
for Iran and the Iranian community. It is from Karg Island that Iran exports 90% of its oil. It has been exporting more and making a lot more money out of that oil since this conflict began, as it has access to that Strait of Hormuz. There has been a threat for some time against this island. As you rightly point out, at the moment we understand it is not the oil facilities, but just the radars and military sort of infrastructure around that oil facility there that has been struck. But were that to be the next target